and welcome to this week's special episode of the Fixing Football podcast. I am Martin Naylor. I am joined, as always, by Liam O'Meara. Liam, how are you doing?
Very well, Martin. How are you doing? You okay?
I'm good. I'm really good. We're recording this on Sunday, so pardon me if I'm a little bit overjoyed. Liam, we have some guests with us today. To one side of me, this is 2/3 of the greatest trio in private entertainment. Let's call it that.
That sounds shifty, doesn't it?
Me being yeah, it does actually. Me being the other third. One side here is Greg Gallagher, aka Gallagher, drumming sensation, part-time DJ. In fact, million part-time jobs. It's a podcast in itself to talk about his outside of the drums career. But Greg, welcome.
Hello, how are we doing?
I'm good, mate. Greg, you're a Newcastle fan?
I am indeed. This is going to get spicy, isn't it?
It is, mate. And on the other side, Liam, we have Josh Phillips, aka JPSax, one of the greatest sax players you will ever see on a night out. Unfortunately, he is also a Man City fan, so there's going to be plenty to get into that. Josh, how are you doing, mate?
I mean, considering you mentioned it's Sunday evening, I'm not too good, mate. But you know, we'll move past it for now. I'm sure it'll come up, but other than that, mate, I'm doing great.
So we'll get stuck into these two in a minute, mate. First, I want to start with Bolton Wanderers. You have your new manager, as we predicted on the last episode.
Yes.
Steven Schumacher. Is that right?
It is Steven Schumacher, yes.
And you didn't start off great.
No, I didn't play that well, to be completely honest.
That'll do it.
Yeah, that will help. I didn't realise just how good of a side Reading had until we were sort of lined up playing against them, and I thought, look, quality all over the pitch here, Reading. It's not an excuse, but it wasn't a great performance. I was a bit confused after the game with Steven Schumacher saying that he was encouraged by the performance and he's learnt a lot, and this is exactly why he thinks it will go up. That's not what I saw. I saw the same performance we've had pretty much all season. When put up against anyone half decent, we've struggled. So not the best start, but it is a start, so no point getting too worked up about it.
A couple of days left of the transfer window. Well, so let's call it 24 hours left. Are you anticipating anything? I mean, by the time people hear this, we'll know. So are you anticipating anything to happen? We've had a couple more signings since, I think.
Yeah, so I think, well, it's one more. Because I think Alex Murphy, we caught that. That just happened before our last one. So we've had Keon Atete on loan from Cardiff, 6'6" centre forward. Didn't have the greatest debut, I will say. In fact, probably one of the worst I've quite ever seen, actually, on Saturday. So he can only go one direction from there. It was pretty poor, to be completely honest. He'd fit in well to the current Bolton team because he looks soft as shit. So that will, it looks like he's going to fit in quite well. Yeah, it wasn't great, but I'm not going to write him off after 30 minutes, but, I could have done, to be completely honest. I'm being reasonable because it was a horrific debut. But yeah, we got him, so that's encouraging. I expect we'll probably do a little bit more because with a new manager in, it's quite clear that we still have that soft centre, so we may want to bring in something more combative in the field. So we'll see. I think it'll be out and ins at Bolton.
And last one on Bolton. Are you happy with Steven Schumacher? He was your sort of first choice and probably most likely, but are you happy with that appointment?
Yeah. I'll get over the fact that he's a Scouser in time. I think that was one of my only non-negotiables that I had. So, he's got Plymouth out of this division. That was a good Plymouth team. I talked about it last time because it looked like this was going to be the case. So I don't want to repeat myself, but he seems a good manager. So fingers crossed. All
right. Greg, we're going to start with you, mate. Turns out mine and Josh's paths are going to be crossed here. Newcastle, the accumulator ruiners, as I like to call them, the most unpredictable team in the league. It could be like 1 week you're beating someone 5-0 or turning over us, for example, on the next week you're getting drubbed 4-1 at home. How would you assess your season so far?
Yeah, exactly that. It's tiring because if you were going to come, I've said this to people before, if you were going to come 6th in the league, I'd rather get beaten by most of the top 6 and get a result a bit of the time. But then going into a football match, you want to enjoy it, and you look at, Fulham, Bournemouth, Southampton, or someone. You just want to know you're going to beat those teams to feel quite good, rather than, like you say, get turned over by Bournemouth at home 5-0, 5-1.
Yeah.
It's just depressing because you go in, it's classic Newcastle. You get a little bit ahead of yourself and you think, it's going to be a good game, we might beat them, and then just not turn up whatsoever. And then, like you say, turn over Arsenal 2-0 in the cup, or draw 3-3 with Liverpool in the last minute. It's it's one of those seasons, but it's not that bad. You look at the league position and you've got to sort of pinch yourself because you're like, we're sort of in and around it again. So you kind of have to take a step back. It's not like the season that we got Champions League football 2 years ago, because everything was great. This seems like the narrative is different this season, yet we're still clinging on somehow.
So for our listeners, they might be confused as to why the Newcastle fan on the podcast doesn't have this thick Geordie accent that we're all expecting. So
I think they've probably got used to that by now, because
we're not that good yet.
I've not.
Martin,
I've not got the most.
Martin, you say that. Everyone's going to be confused why this Arsenal fan's talking in a Bolton accent. So
yeah, no, address.
It's been happening for months.
Thanks, JP.
So,
and you'd have my back, even though you never do in the group chat.
He likes me winding you up. Listen, fill us in. How did you get into Newcastle and football and life? What's your story?
So it's a family connection. So I was born in the northeast, and then moved south when I was 3. My first words were in Geordie, but when you go to school in Sussex from the age of 4 or 5, it gets beaten out of you pretty quickly, doesn't it? So, passport says, I'm not going to tell you where the passport says, but
yeah, they put the address out
there. Yeah. But, people say, oh, you're not a Geordie. I'm like, I am. It's hard to believe.
It is hard to believe out of the 3 of us that you're the most northern.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So, family connection, and then what's your earliest memories of Newcastle?
Me and my dad used to have season tickets, so we used to travel all the way from Sussex all the way up on a match day. So we were some of the longest travelling home regular supporters to Newcastle. So we used to get quite a lot of away games in because they were practically like home games. And your dad's
a priest, right?
My dad is a priest, so he wears the black and white every day.
Is that just the way he found a career where he could do that? Because he couldn't play.
I mean, he used to wear. The funny stories about that is because Saturday he'd always maintain it was a work day, so he'd have his black shirt, his black jeans, his Doc Martens, and his dog collar on. And I remember once we were at West Ham away, there was this pissed up Newcastle fan in the concourse. You see my dad, and he screams something like, "Hey, that guy's dressed as a priest!" And then, as we got a little bit closer, he kind of like kept looking, and he goes, "Is that guy actually a priest?" I looked at him and sort of like nodded. I was like, "I'm so sorry."
Do you remember your first Newcastle match?
I don't remember which one it was, but it was in the Shearer era. I can't remember exactly the year, but I was in the stadium when Shearer scored his record-breaking goal for Newcastle or for the Premier League. And I always say this, it's more astounding that it came off a Shola Amiobi backheel assist. It's never been done. But I mean, you'll have some experience with one of the Amiobi brothers and a little bit of pain in Sammy Amiobi from Bolton, won't you?
And Shola, I think you've had them both, haven't you, Liam?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say I really like Shola, actually. Shola did really well for us, and he came at a point where we were really in trouble financially, and I think he enjoyed playing for us to the point where we signed him on a short-term contract, but then we got put under embargo. And he said he'd play for us for free because he wanted to sort of help out. I mean, obviously, he'd earned a decent whack at Newcastle all them years. But, yeah, I think that was a time where we had a strike partnership of Shola Amiobi and Emile Heskey up front. in the bottom end of the Championship. Yeah,
That's some
We'll never
iconic.
forget that partnership.
yeah. What a wasn't much pace,
Absolute
mind, but yeah,
He used to
we've
play on the wing for a while, he could never get a game for Newcastle up top. He's just one of those players, a bit like Steve Harper spent his whole career on the bench because we had Shea Given, and they were just happy to pick up their wages and sit on the bench.
there's a case of playing a bigger target man on the wing. Like, people don't realise that Kevin Davis played right wing for Bolton his entire time. He never played centre forward. They played him on the wing so he could target fullbacks. It's a good way of doing it, that. But onto Sammy as well. Sammy was really good for Bolton. He's
Sammy Amiobi, I remember being very scared at one point because I'm not sure what the actual stat is. I can try and find it. In terms of goals per minute for Amiobi, Shola, for Newcastle, because he spent however long at Newcastle, and I think Callum Wilson and Isak have passed him on like 46 goals, and they've been here hardly any time at all. Shola Amiobi spent his whole career at Newcastle and it has been eclipsed by most people. I think Jacob Murphy's probably catching up, who knows? But I remember being very scared that we were going to get Sammy Amiobi come through and just take over the mantle. So I was going to have about 20 years of shite Amiobi, brother. At Newcastle.
There was
Sammy could have really kicked on at one point because he left us to go to Nottingham Forest, and they were in a pretty good point then, Nottingham Forest, but he sort of fell off a cliff. I think he's been a bit of trouble recently as well, hasn't he? He's out of the club, isn't he? And he's kind of really sort of tanked.
Crashed into someone's car, didn't he? And then ran off because he's now an electrician's apprentice or something, earning about 320 quid a week.
The minutes thing you were saying, Greg, I think there was a stat, and I don't know if it's still the case, but he was the most subbed on player in Premier League history for a long time. I don't know if it's still the case, but that probably adds up to his minutes per goal ratio that he'd probably just do the last 20 minutes most weeks. Sammy Amiobi, when I was working at Bolton Wanderers, obviously he came on loan at first, didn't he, Liam? There was such a difference in his car compared to everyone else's. He had this like matte camouflage GLE Mercedes, and everyone else was like in like hire cars and stuff.
Yeah, there was
so much shit at the time.
There was him and Jay Spearing that were like that, weren't they? That were just really odd ones out in terms of like career earnings at that point. Mad.
So let's talk about Newcastle a little bit more, and then we'll want to get onto City. You currently have probably the most coveted striker in the history of any transfer rumours.
Start talking about Alexander Isak. You just can't help yourself, can you? You can't have him.
Listen, I'm not. It's not just me who's a big fan. I'm asking you what's it like having someone who is constantly rumoured with leaving, and also just how important is he in terms of Newcastle going forward?
I think he's incredibly important because he's that good, and he seems to pull rabbits out the hat because he could probably play on the wing because he's that good with his feet. And it's another thing that sort of sums up Newcastle's season. We're playing really well, and when we're destroying teams, Isak's having a field day. You know, he'll come and tip in with a sloppy goal which he's added to his game, you know, like a poacher's goal. And then other times he'll drag defenders out of position. They won't know what to do. But then I think even though he's got a lot of goals, there's still that consistency problem where when Newcastle aren't playing well, I don't think he's the man to drag you out of a hole in terms of take it on himself and win you the game. I think he'll win you a game
if you play him well.
I'm not comparing Haaland to Isak, but in terms of all-round game, I think Isak's got a bit more. Haaland's obviously the better finisher, but all-round
Haaland's in a better team generally.
Well, yeah, exactly. So he just really needs to finish. But obviously, when you're playing in a team that's sort of could come anywhere between 4th and 8th, 10, you've got to do a bit more. So, we do pinch ourselves that we've got him.
Well, that was going to be my next bit. How important is it that you keep him in terms of Project Newcastle with your, ongoing battles with PSR and stuff, in terms of just being someone who you could probably value at 150 million, and if we had the money that you had, I'm sure we'd have coughed that up this January or last summer to take him off your hands, and a lot of other clubs would. The fact of the matter is that you've got the pulling power in terms of wages you can offer him, and probably you don't need our money either, or anyone's money, should I say. So how important is it to keep him happy, and him be the focal point for the project going forward?
It's such a difficult one. It sort of leads into PSR quite heavily, because essentially, as much as we can give him all the wages we want, we can't, because we haven't offered him a new contract yet because of tying down Anthony Gordon to a new contract.
Right.
Which is...
So what's what we're looking at, like 18 months left on his contract or something?
No, it's longer than that. The only reason he hasn't had a contract extension is because he's still got about 3 years left.
Oh, okay.
On his contract. So we're in a strong position, and now would be the time to, give him a bigger contract and sort of reward him. But we're still completely hamstrung, and it's one of those things where you say, right, we might lose one of the best strikers in the world currently.
Yeah.
You don't know what he's going to do in a year or two's time. We might get 150 million if someone stumps that up. And that, in terms of PSR, isn't just you can buy 150 million pounds worth of players, because obviously you amortize those over contracts. So 150 million actually means a great deal more on the PSR calculation. But then remember when Tottenham sold Gareth Bale and bought, what is it, 5 or 6 players? Yeah. And they were rubbish. And that makes me happy, because it makes me happy that Spurs are just Spursy. But it's such a balancing act. But this is where I think it's completely ludicrous and unfair. Obviously City are having a bit of problem at the minute form-wise, or Chelsea had a bit of problem when they dropped down to, 10th or something in the league.
Yeah.
They could just go, oh, well, we built our team before PSR and we've got a load of kids that are worth 20-30 million a pop, so we can just sell them. And then Newcastle go, oh, can we have a go? And they go, oh, no, no, we don't want you spending any money.
Right. That's a whole minefield. We'll get onto your
PSR is a completely different podcast, and it could probably be about a 20 podcast series. And
it's been about 8 episodes of ours already.
and I don't want to get angry with you, Martin. So
well,
we'll just say PSR is not helping. But I think PSR, my sort of final point on PSR would be, if you look at the January transfer window, you look at how many teams aren't doing business, apart from the teams that built good squads before PSR came in. And it kind of just gives you your answer, like, who are the teams making moves in the transfer window?
Yeah.
That gives you your answer, really. It's quite sad.
It's a mad one. Well, that leads me on nicely to Josh, the team that is making moves in the January transfer window, Manchester City. Josh Phillips, aka JPSax.
Yes.
Man City fan. First of all, let's go right back to the beginning. Why Man City?
I suppose very similar to Greg, to be honest. It was a family thing, I was born into a family that have always been Man City fans, and I kind of wasn't really given a choice. One of the first pictures of me as a baby is me and my twin brother in matching Man City kits. The Adios Lecoq Sportif era.
Yeah, that's the classic Man City one, isn't it?
Absolutely belting kit, mate. We've had some good ones, we've had some terrible ones, but yeah. So it was pretty much decided for me that when I was brought into this world that I would be a Man City fan. So
yeah, that's why I went the other way, because my dad weren't asked.
Yeah, well, the former years were painful.
I bet, yeah.
The recent years haven't been too bad, to be honest. But I mean, this one's testing me a little bit. But
you've had King Dick of the group chat for the last couple of years, so
exactly.
It's been fun to have you on the back foot this year.
Yeah, well, I'm probably I'm probably the only one who's won a league in the last 20 years, maybe, in the group chat.
Yeah, it's getting on.
So I'll enjoy it while I can.
Right, let's talk about Man City then.
Absolutely.
obviously you've had a great couple of years, and I say couple, we're getting on for 10 years of almost complete dominance, really. What have you made then of this season? Given that everyone still hails Guardiola as still the best manager in the world, and I'd be on board with that. He still is. I haven't had the chance to catch his post-match comments today, but he's as weird as ever, but he's as brilliant as ever. So what do you make of this season then?
I'll be honest with you, mate. I'm slightly confused by it. You know, last 5 years we've pretty much had total domination, except from 1 year when Liverpool ran us to the wire. But if you look at the years that we've won, we've pretty much dominated the whole thing. But we've come into this year, and it's we're now back into the top four, but we're level on points with Newcastle, I believe. So it's I'm really thrown by it, to be honest. I don't see what it is that's going wrong, but we just don't seem to be playing as well. I can't pin it down to like a managerial thing or anything like that. It's just we're making a lot of mistakes defensively. Like if you look at the first goal today, Akanji just pretty much giving it away. That's a pass that last year, the year before, we would be controlling with ease. It's tight in or around the penalty area, sort of football that we're used to Guardiola playing and stuff. But it's we just don't seem to be handling it this year.
Luke, one of our other hosts, made a comment at the beginning of the season about all the stuff with the charges. Now, we don't need to get into them, but the fact that all the stuff with the charges would weigh heavy and potentially burden your season. And that seems to be the one thing that stuck true from all the usual shite that he talks.
Yeah.
But that's one other thing that stuck around, is that sort of as soon as the court case started, that's when it all fell to pot. You started really well. I think Haaland was on about 15 goals before this trial started.
Yeah.
So, do you think that's the case, or is it just like a total anomaly to you? Because it even seemed like Pep was struggling to put his finger on what's been going on at the moment.
I do and I don't, to be honest with you, because there's one point that yes, all these players are maybe thinking, what is going to happen to us? We've got the charges and all that, and if you look at what happened to Everton last year and stuff, where they got points docked and stuff. Obviously, we have a lot more charges against us than they ever did, and pretty much any team in history ever has. But at the same time, the club's got lawyers to deal with that, and they're going to be the ones doing the court cases and things. And it's not the players and stuff that have got to deal with all that. So surely they'd be focused on let's play our best football we can and stuff. But it just doesn't seem that they are. So it's kind of it is still a bit of an anomaly to me, because it's not their sort of...
Yeah, it's not their problem.
Yeah, it's not their problem to deal with. They got to go out and play the game and stuff. But
I don't want to get stuck onto the charges, Josh, but I feel like I'd be remiss not to take this opportunity of having a Man City fan on the podcast to ask that, let's say in a world where you do get found guilty of it, does that make the last sort of 15 years of achievements completely meaningless?
I mean, it doesn't to me. I have a lot of people going, oh, Man City don't have a lot of fans, your stadium's half empty, all these sorts of things. I don't care. I am a fan, and I've watched us win things. Doesn't matter if we've cheated or not. I've sat there and I've watched us win a load of stuff. Yes, it kind of does weigh on you that maybe it was a little bit meaningless and stuff, because we haven't exactly done it properly, so to speak, because of all the charges weighing on us and that. But
I feel like I would feel like that. Like, you can't take them moments where you're celebrating the Champions League.
I just try not to think about it. I've had some fantastic moments. I was on a gig the night we won the Champions League, and I was driving home on the phone to my mum and my brother at home, and they were like close to tears because we've won the Champions League, and it's like all these fantastic moments and stuff. I'd hate to forget about them and render them sort of useless. But
I get that.
it is sort of one of them. Yeah.
What do you make of then? So we've talked about your form this season, and Pep has done something sort of quite uncharacteristic and dived into the transfer window. And I think you've 3 players have secured with a couple more rumoured.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Do you think that's him admitting fault, admitting that he's got a lot wrong, or the squad's just become thin and they're a bit, I don't know. They don't really seem like real Manchester City signings either. I'm struggling to.
I am a bit confused, like with a couple of the signings that we've made, but I wouldn't say it's kind of a squad thing out and stuff. We've got a couple out to injury that have, we've had De Bruyne come back recently, and obviously we've got Rodri out for the season and things like that, which kind of makes me think, surely a team can't rely on one player so much. Because, we had a record where we'd gone for something like 70 odd games where if Rodri had played, we'd won the game. We'd not dropped, lost the game. We either won or drew. But if you look at, the people that we've lost, we've not really lost anyone of significance other than, Walker in this transfer window, who was big for us, But it's a loan deal, that. But I wouldn't say it's the squad thinning out. I think it's just him panicking a bit, what's going on this season sort of thing. So he's brought people in, but I don't really get, why he's brought the people that he has, because they're not, like you said, typical Manchester City signings.
Fair.
Josh, just before we go on that, were you surprised that Pep signed his contract extension?
I am, because he doesn't typically stay at, if you look at his previous history, when he was at Barcelona and Bayern Munich and stuff, he didn't, once he'd won everything, he moved on. And he's done it with us. He's won everything. He's won the Premier League, the FA Cup, Carabao, he's won Champions League. He's won everything he can with us. So I thought it'd be a typical Pep move to go, I've won everything I can here. Let's go to another league and win everything there. Go to Portuguese league or Italian league or something like that. I thought he'd do it with another team and try and extend his legacy that way. But
fair
clearly
enough.
he's found something that he wants here.
I'll add an extension question onto it as well. If there wasn't this charges cloud hanging over us with terms of Man City, do you think that the message around Pep's extension will be different in the sense that people might think that it's not necessarily a good idea to stay with Pep and maybe they do need a change, especially if you look at what Liverpool have managed to do on the slot, just by essentially bringing a new direction to that team? Do you think you'd probably look at it differently if it weren't such a almost act of pure loyalty like it feels like? If that wasn't the case, you may be, as a City fan, thinking we could probably do with someone fresh in here. This is starting to look a bit desperate.
I'd like it. And to be honest, I'd take a couple of years of winning nothing, but with, bringing someone new in, new direction and stuff, because we have had Pep for a while and stuff, but I think I would kind of welcome someone new in. It's not that I want Pep to go by any means, because he's done incredible things for the club and stuff. But like you mentioned, with Klopp leaving and Arne Slot coming in, who'd have predicted that under new management Liverpool would be doing so well this year? It could just be the change that we need. But yeah.
Right, what we're going to do, we're going to have a 2-minute break, and then we're going to be right back. And we're back. Liam, I want a quick chat about stuff that's gone on this weekend. Greg might not like us talking about Chris Wood because he's showing the form that he could have only dreamed of in a Newcastle shirt. But Chris Wood, another hat-trick.
Yeah. It's amazing how refreshing it is to watch Nottingham Forest playing a quite old-fashioned style.
Yeah.
They sort of hit the break with 2 wingers getting the ball in the box. It's so pure. But when you have someone like Chris Wood, who isn't just a big lump. He has a real habit of finding a pocket of space to operate in. So he's never... it always looks a simple header because of him knowing how to use his body and essentially pin defenders up against him, regardless of who they are. Yeah, they're a really good side to watch.
I was going to say my result that stuck out from the weekend was Everton. I know the wasn't the greatest of opponents, but still for Everton to score 4, like for Goodison to be rocking was pretty.
It's 3 in a row, isn't it? 3 in a row for him now.
I mean, it's the almost like stereotypical new manager bounce, but he's picking it up, doing it against Leicester as well as a team in and around him.
James Garner makes a big difference.
He's a good ball for the
that ball for is it the third goal straight through the middle for Beto just for half time. Like, it's really, really high quality. But he was very good for them earlier right at the beginning of the season, wasn't he?
Has he just been injured or just not been featuring?
He's been injured for about 3 months.
Oh, okay.
First game back, they weren't expecting him to be back yesterday. It was a bit of a surprise selection that he was back in the team, but
also they just had 2 sort of season-ending injuries. I think Calvert-Lewin's out and someone else has just had their season ruled out.
I mean, it depends how you define that. I mean, I would call Calvert-Lewin getting injured a season-beginning injury, to be completely honest. But, good luck to him in his recovery.
And last one, shock results of the weekend. I don't know what's more shocking, United losing again at home or Tottenham winning. I don't know which one you want to pick on.
The Tottenham... Do you know, I had a look at that Tottenham lineup before the game, and I just thought, he could go here, before that game. Like, that lineup especially that back 4 away at Brentford. He did not need that game, but I watched, obviously, that game, with being the Sky game, and Spurs were pretty good, actually. But they weren't tested. I think Brentford will be disappointed because they got a little bit out of that long ball over the top early on, and they didn't continue that to a point where Tottenham felt under pressure. So a massive win for them, and they go marching on. But I believe Van der Ven's close to recovery, which could be massive for Spurs, I think.
They go marching on, is that what you just said? The other one, United, Crystal Palace, Adam Walton back in the team, seemed to be pulling the strings.
I think he was there for the last sort of 15, 20 minutes, I think, Walton.
Oh, did he? I'm just going off social media. I didn't watch so much.
No, they controlled the game. Will Hughes was...
Oh, really?
Everywhere, yeah. Really pulling the strings. I saw the second half of this game, and I don't think United laid a glove on Crystal Palace. It was... I think I remarked to Luke directly that Crystal Palace are better than Man United. That was my genuine observation watching that game. Like, I think Kobe Mainoo started up front for United in the first half and missed that, but I believe that was fun.
Jesus,
well,
they're a mess. They're a mess of a club.
Hoyland and Xerxes sat on the bench. Rashford being loaned out to a Champions League club, but they're starting Kobe Mainoo up front. So Amarin knows what he's doing. Obviously, who am I to question the fact that he just seems to be throwing a season? But whatever, they've signed Dorgu, have they, from Lecce, left back? But
that leads me nicely onto some transfer stuff.
You're welcome.
Seems like Villa are going all out attack. They've already bought in Daniel Marlon. Rumours are that João Felix, Marcos Asensio, and obviously Marcus Rashford are coming in. I mean, what do you make of all that?
I don't think Felix... I can't see Felix happening. I just think Chelsea will battle it with them being direct competitors for that 4th or 5th Champions League spot. So I don't think that will happen. I think Felix will end up elsewhere. But Asensio and Rashford look done. I think it's good business because you've got 71 million for John Duran, who obviously didn't want to be there. So you look on paper and you go, which one is the best right now? Because in the Premier League, you don't really think about potential to a certain extent. You've got to think about, right now, Villa can still get in the Champions League for next season. So Watkins is better than John Duran now. So you take that £70 million for Duran, worry about that in the summer, and you've got Asensio and Rashford in on loans, and there's your rotation, there's your cover. Rashford can be used out wide as well. So yeah, it seems good business. João Felix is a funny one. I've just never seen it with him, to be completely honest. But maybe just it hasn't worked out in the Premier League. And we talked about it in the summer. I didn't know why Chelsea went back for João Felix. But yeah, I can't see that happening. I just can't see Chelsea wanting to strengthen Aston Villa. I think that would be a mistake on their end.
So, Josh, we spoke about City. I don't know if we see anyone else coming in, especially anyone who's going to really break into that first 11. Greg, what are you saying about Newcastle? Is there anything potentially happening other than Lewis-Skelly somewhere ending up at Juventus?
That has got to be the most left field transfer.
It's weird, that.
Do you know what? I was saying to some people, I'm glad it's happening now because he's not played at all.
Is it a loan?
It's a loan with a obligation, so it's not an option. Obligation. So I think it's between 15 and 20 mil, probably with the loan fee and stuff. But I'm so glad that's happened because I thought it was a shrewd bit of business because, you know, Premier League experience and people at Bournemouth were saying he was good, you know, left back, cover and centre back. But every time he's played, he's dropped a howler. And he's on because he came for free. He's on $100,000 or $150,000 a week or something ridiculous. He's one of the top earners. So in terms of PSR, again, like we have to be like traders essentially. So like obviously we got Minter and had to sell him before he even kicked the ball for us. And then we've had Lewis-Skelly, who's may as well not have kicked a ball for us, and we've, you know, got 20 mil out of that. So it's smart business. But they're still, what they're doing is they're waiting until summer because that first year in the rolling period drops off. So I would expect in summer to see some proper moves. But it depends on what happens this season. It's a massive gamble not doing anything in this window, even though we probably can't.
And not getting the Champions League.
If we don't get any form of European football, then, you know, big. Isak, Bruno, Tonali, Gordon, all of them really, all the top players at Newcastle won't want to hang around for another season. You know, everyone talks about Bruno going to, you know, someone like City or something, but he's 27, so he's approaching his peak, really, peak of his powers, and he won't want to stay another season to maybe get Champions League football, and then all of a sudden he's 29. And, you know, he's looking for his sort of final big contract, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. Okay. Let's touch on very quickly Arsenal v Man City this Sunday evening, this beautiful, fine Sunday evening.
Do we have to?
Well, just for my benefit more than anything, to see you squirm for a minute.
Yeah.
Just give us your review, your 1 minute review of the match.
I think, obviously, very poor from us.
Be as colourful as you like with your language. There'll be no censorship.
I'll try not to be, but first half, would have been 2 or 3. We were lucky to go in at 1-0. Towards the end of the first half, we did look more promising. We looked like we were controlling a bit more. And then, obviously, came out second half. I said to you before we started recording that Haaland got his equaliser, and I was like, right, go to Gabriel and rub it in his face. Because obviously he gave it a bit of that in the first goal. Yeah. But it was obviously got the equaliser, and then I think after that second goal went in, after Arsenal's second went in, it just felt like we lost it. We just kind of lost our heads a little bit, and there was a lot of really, really sloppy play at the back. Defenders were just a bit all over the place, obviously. Kanji giving it away for the first goal. We had Foden with a really, really poor pass to give away was it the second or third? I can't remember. I'm blanking out in memory on purpose.
Yeah, it's Foden giving away for the second one. And it's mad about City, because the one for City is that there isn't. I know the new lad had a bit of a mare last week, but in general, that defence is pretty much the same as last year. Walker's been in and out.
Yeah.
The fact that the defence have been so poor has been really mad. And I don't know if it's just
Yeah.
missing and they haven't got him to bounce off. But still,
Yeah, I mean,
great players like Gundogan in there, and Kovacic is. I thought Kovacic was probably our best player today.
yeah, he was. He was in parts like he kind of controlled it in the midfield when we had our little spell towards the end of the second half. But
Yeah,
it was. I can't really understand what's going on with us at the back at the minute. Obviously, we're constantly rotating who we put at right back because we've not really got one at the minute. Obviously, we've got kind of Rico Lewis that we can put in there. Guardiola was signed as a centre back, but obviously he's kind of shining at left back. He's probably been our player of the season. I'd put it down to at the minute. You know, he's turning up with goals. He's really consistent, but I don't think he was all there today. And
I like Guardiola, but he's prone to a little bit of a howler as well sometimes. Like you can target him.
He is. Yeah.
So
I'll agree with that.
Right, last question to you both about current club situations. Greg, where do Newcastle finish this season?
Oh, God, that's another podcast. That that is impossible. It could be fourth. It could be eighth. I think you look at the strength of the Premier League at the minute, just with teams like Bournemouth and Forest being up there and playing so well. You know, any team in that top 8 could come back and become fourth because it's so tight up there. So I'm sitting on the fence and saying it will be European football in some form. So well that
Josh?
could be 7th. That could be 7th, couldn't it?
Yeah, Josh, same question. I was going to say, is it probably the same answer?
It's probably a similar answer, to be honest. I think probably for me, I think unfortunately Guardiola's probably given up on the Prem this year.
Yeah.
We're not going to win that, so is our focus on the Champions League. But obviously the draw didn't do us nice. We just managed to get through to the next stage, but obviously we're drawing Real Madrid in that, and it's not fun.
It's not the easiest tie.
It's not exactly the one that we wanted, but you know, if you look at like the Prem fixtures we got coming up and stuff, we've got next. I think we've got Liverpool coming up, which
you got a stinker run of fixtures.
They'll beat us. Spurs, obviously they're not doing well this season, but in the last couple of years they've been our bogey team. They just beat us every time, you know, and it's away as well, and we've only won once at Spurs away, at that new ground anyway. So I think it's a bit of a stinker coming up for us, but get through that period, and we've got Forest as well who are playing really well. But I think I'd like to think we can get top 4. You know, I think the teams behind us will have a bit of a fall off. I don't think, unfortunately, sorry Greg, that Newcastle will be all that.
You're not sorry.
I'm not sorry at all. No, no. I think with their kind of come and go form, I don't see it kind of lasting. And
for them, about come and go form when Manchester City's form has been more go than come.
I've got to try and make myself feel a little bit better here, which is what I'm doing.
Well, they've been ruining a load of backers as well because everyone's like, yeah, City will hit form. They will do this. Yeah. Oh, bollocks, they haven't.
I don't think City are getting Europe. I don't see where it turns around. Like, there's no leaders in that team. They're really, really mentally weak team. And I don't think Pep Helps stood at the side going nuts, losing his mind every 5 seconds. Like, there's no resilience whatsoever. Just made of wet paper. And I think anytime you might win the odd game and think that you're back, and then you'll have another setback, and it'll be arguments in the changing room again. And I think you're in a real big. I think you're in a real big. I don't remember a drop off this bad. And and I don't want to think because you've been a brilliant team and you've won the league 4 years in a row, and in that time you've won obviously the treble as well in that time. So it's been an amazing dynasty, really. But it has completely imploded. Like,
it's a bit reminiscent of AC Milan, sort of back in the day. when they had
So yeah,
Maldini,
but-
Nesta, all them, and then they completely dropped off when they all retired because they sort of all aged together somewhat.
It is.
Yeah,
I think-
I'd like to think there will be a turnaround, but I don't see it happening. I think we'll probably just get Europa. I think we'll challenge for that, but I don't see it being much better. You know, on
I
current
would
form
love
and
to
stuff.
see Pep have
with
to
what's
go
going
to
on.
the Conference League.
Yeah.
The Europa
mean,
Conference,
Hilarious.
Jesus,
That
that'd
would be
be
so funny. Freezing his
terrifying.
nuts off in the arse end of Europe.
Shamrock Rovers against
Yeah.
City.
No, please don't. I've
Oh,
had enough.
Before the game, saying, "Oh, it was so good." Like Cork City are before the game, like because they you don't see it, man. The way they try and play every week, so good. Like, that'd be brilliant to watch.
It's not
Yeah,
an
my
episode.
impression is flawless.
It's not an episode if Liam's not breaking out the Pep impression. Greg, do Newcastle end the season with the trophy? Obviously, this week we have a big matchup between ourselves. I've already dispatched of one of the group this weekend, so our attentions are turning up to St James's Park, and it's Arsenal v Newcastle. Obviously, you've got a very healthy lead. Before I'll let you go on with your prediction, I'll give you mine. I think we win the match at St James's Park, but I don't see you not scoring, and therefore you probably win the tie and proceed to the final. I'm just worried about a Newcastle Spurs final because I feel like how can both teams lose? I don't know. I don't understand how this like the maths on that. So, I mean, Carabao Cup obviously maybe your best chance. I mean, you was in the final last time, but you was against City, so it's.
There's United. We got beat by United last time.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right.
And we didn't turn up.
Yeah. What are your thoughts now?
This whole weekend, especially losing to Fulham in the manner
Yeah,
that
yeah.
we did. Again, it's that lack of consistency. And Eddie Howe always talks about like that wasn't our best moment or this wasn't our best performance. And it seems like we have to be what Eddie Howe describes as our best to actually do anything, which is stressful because you can't be at 100% all the time. And then with Arsenal beating City 5-1, like we go into essentially what is half time with a 2-goal cushion and a home advantage. It's quite nice, but if you've just spanked City 5-1, you could spank us
Tails are
5-0.
up. I know, especially seeing like other teams go up there and do well. And I've never thought that Newcastle are unbeatable there, as opposed to other teams at home.
We
But,
used to be,
Yeah,
but then again, the unfortunate thing for you is the way this season's gone. We've been beating or even a good run against the bigger teams at home, and just
Yeah.
slipping up against the smaller teams or the teams traditionally you'd think weren't going to do as well. So if there was a game that we're going to get up for, maybe this performance was one eye on Wednesday.
yeah.
I'm going to go the other way, Greg. I think that St James's Park's going to be a horrible, anxious mess in that game, and I think Arsenal score early as well, just to really crank that up. I'd be shocked if this is. I'd be surprised if it doesn't go to extra time. I see Arsenal going through. To be honest, I think the occasion will be too much for Newcastle, and I think Arsenal coming off the back, they've got a real sort of thing off the back of them here by beating City finally. Arguably, it's the easiest time to do it, but fair enough, they've won it. That's great, but I just can see Arsenal stepping it up in this game now. There's a real pressure on Arteta to deliver a trophy, and that even though they're 2-0 down, like you say at half time. This is the best opportunity they've got of winning a trophy this season because it's a semi-final and the final will be either against Tottenham or potentially a distracted Liverpool team. So, yeah, I think Arsenal will come out swinging.
I think it will be a Liverpool someone final. I don't think
Yeah.
the way Spurs play, even though they sort of got lucky and beat Liverpool, I think it will be Liverpool in the final. But it depends. It always depends what St James's Park turns up, what Newcastle team turn up. But we've got the best opportunity. It's definitely still advantage Newcastle. It's just which team appear.
Yeah.
Because we could hold you to 0-0, we could beat you 2-0 again, or we could completely implode, like you say, first minute. And that's the problem. Until we get more strength in depth off the bench, more players Eddie Howe wants rather than sort of PSR trading transfers and things like that, because the squad's thinner now. So until all of that is properly sewn up, then I can't tell you whether we're going to get the Galacticos or whether we're going to get Shola Amiobi.
And just on that Liverpool-Tottenham fixture, if I know Ange's very stubborn in his approach, but if he doesn't turn up with 11 men planted firmly on the edge of their own box and just defending for the life for the whole 90 minutes, I think that's their only way of getting through this tie. Because if they're trying,
he won't do that.
No, this is the thing. He didn't do that when he was down to 9 men against Chelsea. So.
That's just who we are, mate.
Yeah, right. The whole point of this podcast is so me and you and our selection of guests and co-hosts can help us fix this fucking game, because it's not right. We love it and it's beautiful, but it's beautiful in its flaws. So, Josh and Greg, I've travelled the world with these two, and we have seen things that can only be documented by Netflix at a later date when one of us perishes in some tragic circumstances. Anyway, they've brought along some fixes, and me and you are going to try and give them a go and see if somehow we can help fix this game.
Yeah. Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah. So I mean, I don't have to do anything then.
Well, listen and contribute. Josh, I'm going to start with you, mate.
Wait, can Greg go first?
Greg can go first then.
Actually,
let's say him go first.
I actually have one that's sort of a suggestion based around PSR, because that's essentially Newcastle's main problem.
So,
Sorry,
me, in my all-knowing, all-powerful ways of giving you full control of Premier League and footballing world to do as you wish, you have one thing that you would change about it. This is it.
Yep.
Go for it.
I was thinking about this the other day in a way, not where, because I don't like being that Newcastle fan who just shouts everything's unfair on us without coming up with some sort of solution as to what might make it better. Obviously, just letting us spend what we want would be amazing. But in terms of PSR, every club, being allowed £105 million rolling losses, but then the clubs with the bigger commercial revenue obviously get to spend more because they've built their teams, long ago. In America, obviously, they've got the draft system, which basically means the teams that don't do quite as well might get better draft picks and stuff like that. So why couldn't it be that allowable losses, if the owner could come in and say, here is a player that I want to buy, or 60 mil, I'm going to give the club that money.
And here is all the cash for that player.
Here is a contract that says I need to buy it. So in terms of allowable losses, it's not really, because it's a cash injection.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, there's no crazy accountancy to it. It's just, here is the money from me. But then equally, if
kind
you
of what you and
that,
isn't that kind of what you and Nottingham Forest did in June?
No. That nobody knows how we
it's like
Elliot Anderson for 35 million and then somehow paid 20 million for Odysseus Vlachodimos, who wasn't even paid like that. Did you not see the video? His unveiling video, when he looks like he's at gunpoint. He's like on holiday and he's like, "Oh, I'm really happy to be at the club." He looks like he's being held at gunpoint. That was a joke, or something, for example, where if the teams that stay up, 16th gets a little bit more of an allowable loss, or it's based on, it's a fair playing field. It's not just you have all this commercial revenue, you can spend more. So, you'd see teams like, and I know obviously being Arsenal and City, you want it to stay so you can compete for longer. But if you had teams like, I don't know, Leicester that came up and they go, oh, we want to put a bit of cash in. Here's the cash. Or can we have that allowable loss? And the Premier League go, yeah, you get more allowable loss than City do, because obviously they can sell a couple of youth players for, 30, 40 million and do it that way.
Yeah, I've got 2 points. Firstly, Nottingham Forest kind of did that, where they actually overspent almost knowingly because they realised that the gap that they needed to bridge to stay up, and almost took the hit, really, with regards to doing that. What I have seen proposed that's similar to this, and the rules are changing next year, but similar to what you say, where theoretically Newcastle, they do have the wealth of God, and when you got profit and sustainability is not going to be an issue for an organisation 10 times richer than the owners of Man City. So what they do in the end, I've seen this proposed by Kieran Maguire on the Price of Football. He talks about the idea of the luxury tax that they have, I think, in NBA, where if you go beyond the budget, you pay a tax to the league reflective of that. So if you sign a player for, let's say, 100 million and there's a 50% luxury tax, you pay 150 million, with 50 million going into the Premier League to be distributed as they see fit. I've seen that proposed.
I don't like that one.
You don't like it?
No, it just seems luxury tax does. I think there can be a better way of doing it than that. There's something about that just screams big corporation. I know we're dealing with 20 big corporations rolled into one.
So the club with the third highest revenue in the UK game doesn't like the idea that other teams can essentially compete with at the top. Is that basically, and without giving an actual reason as to why they're against it, other than they don't like the vibe of it? Is that basically your position on that?
You know me, mate. I'm a vibes man, and I don't like that. Stinks. There's something about it. I don't know.
Yeah, because American-owned clubs wouldn't be able to compete. That's why, because they've got so many different owners and so many massive conglomerates that they wouldn't be able to. It would mean putting their own money into it rather than just leveraging more debt and creating more investment on it. So
no, I feel like it would make lesser players, like not lesser players. That's the wrong way of putting it, but like then an Elliot Anderson, for example, becomes a £50 million player all of a sudden for no reason other than the fact that he's going to a rich club.
But that's already happening though, because he became a £35 million player purely because he was an academy graduate. Granted, he's actually done brilliantly at Nottingham Forest, and he's probably it's actually looking like a steal right now. But that's not really what happened.
He's a £15 million player because we had to buy that goalkeeper for 20 million.
Yeah.
So that's where it's an absolute joke, really, because why is there now a premium on selling players that you've developed? Do you know what I mean? That's where it's it's sort of not right. But I wouldn't want to give Premier League luxury tax money because I don't believe that they'd actually spend it in the right way. I would have an independent regulator for grassroots and lower league football that money went to as a nominated sponsor.
I'd prefer
the Premier League make enough money.
If that was a thing where it wasn't going to the Premier League and it was officially directed at all these things, then I could probably get on board with that tax.
But you're not gonna get 14 clubs to vote for that solution that the money goes out of the Premier League.
That's the thing.
Wow.
So
no, not the top ones anyway.
No.
Greg's fix is to the PSR rules, and I think we've echoed this quite a few times, Liam, but it is changing, and it's going to be based on club and squad valuation and wages and stuff going forward, isn't it, from next season?
Yes. I can't remember it all inside out. We did an episode on it. I can't remember it inside out.
That's the thing. It's going to be changing so much, and it's just going to get even crazier. And all the Twitter mathematicians out there are going to be pulling things apart left, right, and centre.
Yeah, well, they've got the time on their hands. Like, look at all the Arsenal fans that spend all the time looking at where referees grew up and what team they may or may not have supported when they were growing up. So those people on Twitter, they've got enough time on their hands, Martin. Don't worry.
Listen, you just wait until Bolton have to deal with VAR. You just wait until the PGMOL have got the tiny little cooked fingers around the throat of Bolton Wanderers. Then you'll start to worrying about it. Then we'll see who's loudest. JPSax, Josh Phillips. What is your fix? What would you like to change about this game? What bothers you the most? If you're there, sat there in the pub, having a chat, saying, "This is what I do." Do you know what I do? Boom, go.
Can I say fix Man City's form?
Oh, yeah, you can
all
fix
right.
whatever you want. This is on you.
How recently have we discussed VAR on this?
Bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly. Sound. Well, I'm going to bring it up again.
Yeah, it's usually in the Arsenal section that it comes up.
Yeah, because you hate it, don't you, Martin? It does you dirty every time, apparently.
It does, but that's not the reason why I hate it.
He hates it because it's designed to stop Arsenal winning the Premier League. And
listen, Liam.
And all the people that work within it are all briefed in the same way of ensuring that every decision supports Liverpool and is against Arsenal.
This isn't the segment to railroad it versus Arsenal. It's nothing to do with Arsenal, why I don't like it. I've never liked it. I've never liked the idea of it, the thought of it. You get something like goal line technology, that works. Fine, you can implement that. But even clubs at League 2 level are struggling to afford goal line technology. So what does that say for the rest of the game? I don't like it. I don't like it. I want the game that if I want to lace the boots back up and get back involved in football, the game that I play is the exact same ones that they're playing at the Premier League, just at a lot better standard. That's why I've never liked it. But
you
Josh,
saying you
why
trust
don't
VAR
you like
to see if
no,
ball
don't
is
trust
in play
it.
or not?
Don't just no. Don't, oh my God! Let's not even get started on where the lines
I
are. At
opened
fucking
the
St.
can of
James's Park.
worms here. I love it.
You can get the cameras are somewhat in play when they want to be at St James's Park. It depends who's plugged in what that week.
That was too easy. I'm going to put my fishing rod away now.
Speaking of which, we'll get back onto Josh's fix in a second for VAR. But Greg, you do a lot of work at Premier League grounds and stadiums around the country and world now. What just fill us in a little bit about that? What TV stuff you're involved with?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm going to low hanging fruit. I was at that game where was the ball in, was the ball out?
Better with you not plugging something in, weren't it?
Yeah, it's a bit of sabotage. No, I can't say that. I'll probably get fired. Yeah, I work for a few broadcast companies, namely Premier League Productions. It's quite interesting the way it's going in terms of that expanding quite heavily. Because I think you'll see in the next few years, in terms of PSR and how much money clubs are bringing in, the Premier League taking ownership of their own model on like a subscription-based service. I would say that's probably in the not too distant future, next few years, because it started with a couple of cameras on the sideline to a full studio pres for the Premier League with Shearer and Wrighty and all them lot. So I think there's some quite exciting stuff coming. Yeah, I'm quite lucky. I get to see things sort of pitch side and in the tunnels and things like that.
And what's the your other than St James's Park? What's your nicest or favourite stadium to visit in terms of from a production point of view?
Oof. That's a tough one. It's normally who gives us the best food. And
Everton's new one.
Not yet
Everton got
done.
a new stadium.
They have apparently, mate.
I've not yet done Chelsea, but apparently Chelsea is incredible food-wise. So, it's normally like a roast or a pie or something like that.
Yeah.
And you go to Chelsea and it's practically Michelin star, even for crew.
Ah, nice. Cars pasties at the Tough Sheet, isn't it, Liam?
Yes, and I do recommend
all of the pies. Right. Anyway, let's get back on to Josh's fix. VAR. Tell us why you don't like VAR, Josh, or if you do and you want it more. I don't know where we're going with this.
No. So my thing with VAR is, ever since it was brought in, it's been rule that absolutely everything in the game has to go through it, and it kind of kills stadiums when something happens and you just sat there waiting to go, right, well, they're going to have to check everything about this goal. Was there an offside? Was there an handball in the build-up? Was there a foul in the build-up? Anything like that. It kind of kills it for me. What I think, and to be fair, it's a common It's a common topic that I think you'll probably have covered before, but it's still something that winds me up. What I think we should do is take the approach that some other sports use. So for me, it's like, obviously I don't watch it a lot, but tennis, right?
Yeah.
Where exactly it's up to the players. So I think you nominate someone, probably the captain of the team, where you get a few calls per game. Where if you think something is wrong, where a team scored a goal, there's been a foul, there's been a penalty given, that's something that shouldn't have been, something like that, where it should be nominated, that you get three calls a game or something like that, where the captain is allowed to speak to the referee and challenge like a certain call on the pitch. It kind of, for me, it kind of gets to a point where it kills a game and it kills a crowd in a stadium, where you're like, right, well, it's good things happen. Do I celebrate? Do I not? It's kind of killing a vibe. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my gripe with it. I think there should be a system properly in place that kind of doesn't end up killing a game, killing a crowd, things like that. That where some people can come in and go, right, well, we want to challenge that decision. Because back in the day when there was no VAR, it was fantastic. You'd just be like, "Oh, it's given now. We'll celebrate. Perfect."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to like it in the crowd when there was people cheering, and then someone would spot the linesman's flag up and go, "Oh fuck!" Point over and the flag's up.
It's brilliant. The wind's putting the flags up now. But
I agree, mate. Listen, this is why me and you are like totally in sync. That's why I've been driving audiences wild for years. I've said this thing. I said this thing pretty much word for word. I think mine was like 1 per half or 2 a game or however you want to do it. Captain's choice. Liam, what do you make of that? Changes to VAR.
Difficult to know where to start. So, my biggest concern is, firstly, I wouldn't compare football with other sports because other sports don't really matter, whereas football does. Like, I'm being serious. Like, people talk about like rugby as a thing, going, "Oh, look how well it works in rugby union," but no one gives a fuck. Like, people like rugby for like 2 weeks here when the Six Nations on, and then I never hear anything about it for the rest of the year. Football matters. Like, people, like, it genuinely, for a lot of people, is their sole thing in their life that they care about and they're passionate about. Whereas other sports, that isn't the case. So I feel like comparing it with other sports is nonsensical. People just will accept decisions more in other sports because at the end of the day, by the time they get home, they forgot about what they were at anyway. Like, Wimbledon, like, I hear no one talk about tennis other than any other time. Even when Wimbledon's on, I don't really hear people talk about it. I just see it and I turn over because it's on when I've turned the telly on.
Yeah, but to this point, the technology bit, that system, this is what we're talking about.
Do like captain's call kind of thing? That's what we're talking right. I get the idea of it, and I like that you theoretically might make them less decisions be looked at. But I guarantee, right, a goal goes in a corner, for example, the captain's going to ask to review it. And I put this to you as well, right? Let's say you get 3 reviews. You can see 2 goals off corners where they're like, well, it wasn't that bad. And then a third goes in that was off a hand or something like that. All of a sudden, then it's not the ref's fault. The ref will be like, well, he used all the call. It moves the accountability onto the captain then, who's just there to play football. So I feel like it's good, but I can see flaws in it where you're adding another level. I just think with VAR, you've either got it or you've not. I don't think there's no in-between world. I feel like if you're going to do it, you're just going to try and make it better.
No.
But it either exists or it doesn't, for me.
On this one, mate, I disagree with you. Because
yeah, you would.
No, I wouldn't. This one, like, almost verbatim is what I've been saying. And it doesn't. It brings into play the referee more so. And it keeps linesmen in a job because we're not going to need them soon either. It keeps all these people working how we're meant to say, working very well. Like, we want the best. And it does empower them still without them having the crutch of VAR all the time. That's my shout here.
In rugby league, they get one, don't they? They get one.
One per half.
One per half. And I must admit, I don't think I've ever seen it used correctly. I
What
feel
do you
like
mean?
every single time it's just like some speculative thing that's just not part of it, because it's almost feel like it's there, we got to use it. I don't know. I just feel like it adds another layer to the game. Like, we're already at the point where you can have 5 subs still. Like that seems to have stuck. Like, I just feel like the game's becoming more chaotic, and I feel like that just adds another layer to it.
I don't know. I'm on board with this one. In fact, I'm on board with both, and you seem to have kiboshed them both. I don't like you being the voice of reality here.
Well, I just, I just like from Greg. I don't want to be that Newcastle fan who brings PSR up, but like, if you'd asked me beforehand, what's Greg the Newcastle fan going to bring up, I would have potentially guessed PSR. Potentially. If I was going to guess with JP, I maybe would have guessed the tyranny of the majority and maybe have to be 50-50 voting for Premier League rule changes. I don't know, but we'll see.
These lads have got their head screwed on. All right, we're going to end it there. We've got a busy day when this episode goes out of transfer window, so we'll be back with all the roundup of that next week. Josh, Greg, I'd like to thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate you, boys, and I love you very much.
Thank you for having me, mate.
Thanks very much.
Liam,
yes, thank you, boys. It's been fun. Different teams to talk about. We've been very. I don't know if you keep an eye on our Twitter. We've been very popular with Newcastle fans over the last couple of years, so it's good to get a Newcastle fan. Yeah, they love us up in Newcastle, so it's been really good to get a Newcastle fan on. And City are very, very touchy. I find very negative fan base actually on Twitter. I find City.
No, Twitter's just negative altogether.
I don't know. City fans, considering how well things are going, they could seem to find something to mourn about more than other fans. But yeah, great to have you, boys.
That's my worry.
I've got something more to moan about now, Liam.
Yeah, well, good.
Listen, thank you everyone for listening. You can catch all the information for this at www.fixingfootballpodcast.com. You can find all the information through last week's episodes and everything coming up that we've got on there and all our social media. Once again, Josh, Greg, thank you very much. Liam, thank you as always. You've been wonderful. And we will catch you all in the next one. Thanks a lot. Say bye, boys.
Yes, boys.
Goodbye.